I can't tell you how honored and how grateful I am to be able to participate today in this ceremony, the World War II Japanese American Internment Museum dedication. I'd like to add my voice of appreciation to all the other thanks that have been expressed for all the many people, the long list of people that we've heard about. But I particularly want to thank the people who gave leadership to this project, to Jeff Haoyang, to Dr. Hawkins, to Cindy Smith, and particularly to the Winston Rockefeller Foundation for their generosity in making this possible from way back. And I'd like to also express my thanks to the former mayor of McGehee, Mayor Gould, who became friend of the internees and collected the artifacts and the work of art produced by the internees and kept the flame alive for this moment for so many long years. This is a very important time for America as well as for this community. And certainly this building in which we dedicate this museum is an important built heritage of McGehee, because it was built as a place where people connected with each other. The people of McGehee as well as the people of Takei County connected with long distant friends and relatives, and they connected with this museum here as a railway station. And today it plays a different but equally connective role as a museum, because it transports us in time and space to another time in the history not only of McGehee and Takei County, but for America. It has resonances that are profoundly important. In 1941, December 7th of 1941, Pearl Harbor was bombed, and we were plunged into war. But for Americans of Japanese ancestry, the world suddenly changed profoundly, dramatically. We were looked on with suspicion and fear and hate, simply because we happened to look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. That was our crime. And the hysteria prompted by that resulted ultimately in the President of the United States signing an executive order ordering all Japanese Americans on the West Coast to be summarily rounded up with no charges, with no trial, a core pillar of our justice system, and imprisoned in 10 barbed wire internment camps in some of the most desolate places in this country. There were 2 in the most isolated places in California. There were camps in the windswept, cold, high plains of Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, and the blistering hot desert of Arizona. There were 2 camps on the Arizona desert. And there were 2 in southeast Arkansas, Jerome and Rohwer. In April of 1942, I just turned 5 years old, and before a month was over, my parents got us, my siblings, my younger brother and our baby sister, up very early one morning and hurriedly dressed us. And my brother and I were in the living room looking out the front window, and I saw 2 soldiers with bayonets flashing on their rifles, marching up our driveway. They stomped up the front porch, and they banged on the front door. My father answered it, and we were ordered out of our home on Garnet Street. My parents had prepared luggage for my brother and me to carry, and we stepped outside and waited on the lawn. my father came out, and the last to come out was my mother. She was carrying the baby in one arm and a huge duffel bag in the other. And I saw tears streaming down both cheeks of her face. I will never be able to erase that scene from my memory. It's burned into my brain. We were put on a train, and for 3 days and 2 nights, we were rocked 2/3 of the way across the country to Takei County. We arrived at Rohwer. The train rolled very slowly as we saw the barbed wire fence right alongside the train. I still remember that barbed wire fence. Before long, it became normality to line up 3 times a day to eat meals that people complained about as lousy in a noisy mess hall. It became normal, it became routine for me to go with my father to bathe in a mass shower, standing in line, waiting, and waiting to have our turn. And it became routine for me to go to school in a black tar paper barrack and begin the school day with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I could see the barbed wire fence and the sentry tower right outside my schoolhouse window as I recited the words, "With liberty and justice for all." I was too young to appreciate the stinging irony of our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And it wasn't until I became a teenager and I began reading civics books and government books, the ideals of our democracy and Constitution, that I couldn't reconcile what I knew of my childhood incarceration. And so I engaged my father in after-dinner conversations. I was an idealistic teenager, and there's no one more arrogant than an idealistic teenager. I gave my father a hard time. Some of those discussions became very heated. I was inspired by the civil rights movement and the stirring words of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I said, "Daddy was all wrong. Why did you do that?" And I said something that I still regret today. I said, "Daddy, you led us like sheep to slaughter when you took us into the internment camp." And my father tried to explain it all to me, despite the heat of that many discussions. But the wisdom I got from him through those discussions was, he said, "Our democracy is a people's democracy. And it can be as great as a people can be, but it's also as fallible as people are. Our democracy is dependent on good people to be actively engaged in the democratic process." And it was